The Y20 Summit kicks off tomorrow in Johannesburg. Known as Y20, it is the official youth engagement group of the G20. The gathering brings together young leaders from around the world to debate and propose solutions on issues such as climate change, economic justice, digital transformation, education, and social inclusion. This year, South Africa hosts the summit under the theme Youth Building Bridges, Uniting Solidarity and Championing Equality and Driving Sustainability. More than 150 delegates, thought leaders, will take part in discussions that will culminate in the official Y20 communique, a set of recommendations that will be handed to the G20 leaders. The summit comes just months before the G20 heads of state meeting, also scheduled to take place in Johannesburg this November. For more on this, we're joined by Raymond Matlala, chairperson of Y20 South Africa. Raymond, good afternoon. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. South Africa is hosting Y20 for the first time. What does this moment mean for young people across the country and the continent?
Thank you for having me, Mr. Dixon, and good afternoon to viewers at home. Look, this is a significant moment for us. I mean, G20 comes only after 20 years to South Africa in particular, and in the African continent. This is the first time that G20 will be hosted in the continent broadly. And this means that the continent has now have the influence to influence policy at the global stage. So it also means that some of the fundamental issues that we've been struggling with, we are able to put those views and those recommendations through the communique to heads of states and develop the agenda of things that are important for the continent, such as the youth unemployment, the issues of inequality and inclusive economic development, such issues.
Yeah. Importantly, when Y20 first had to meet and the Sherpas had to think about how to run the platform and how to attract the necessary ideas and young people to participate in this, there was the question, will this be not just inclusive in South Africa, but inclusive of young people across the continent? Given that the Y20 Summit kicks off tomorrow, has that point of inclusivity been achieved?
Absolutely. I mean, we have, for the first time, the only country that has got over 15 guest countries invited. And of that 15, about 8 of them come from the continent. So we've ensured that there is a voice across the continent. And of course, we've also engaged with the African Union, and they will be sending a delegation that is from the African Union and NEPAD. And the other thing that we have been doing in terms of inclusiveness, not only to those that are actively participating, but we have also done it through the technical working groups as well as the working groups itself. And that covers throughout South Africa, nationally, footprint in all the provinces, the continent, and some countries in the global south. In fact, one of the track co-chairs comes from India, for example. So that inclusive component for us has been fundamental and very important. We ensured that it is upheld. The summit will be attended by over 400 delegates. And out of those 400 delegates, again, additional 50 comes from the continent.
The theme gives us a sense of what the issues are that will be addressed by the summit and by the delegates at the summit. Youth building bridges, uniting for solidarity, championing equality and driving sustainability. But out of the theme, what are the issues that you hope to extrapolate and ventilate with delegates over the next few days?
Of course, our high-level priorities for South African chairship, the presidency, is to ensure that we establish a leadership or a structural mechanism that will allow the establishment and the tracking as well as the monitoring and implementation of the Y20 recommendations. As you may be aware that Y20 is one of the oldest engagement groups. In fact, this year Y20 celebrate 15 years of existence, initiated 15 years ago when it set for the first time in 2010. And we've not actually achieved a lot out of that. And that is because there's no continuity. The tracker is not working quite well. And what we thought that is to ensure that we put together a structure that will ensure that there's continuity and there's also implementation. But one of, let me say, two of the key fundamental issues that we want to address there is the issue of unemployment. And as you can see, the unemployment is not a South African issue, it's a global issue, it's a global matter. So we want to address it at that global level and come up with pragmatic steps to ensure that we reduce the issues of unemployment, but also we come up with policy recommendations in which we are going to advocate in the next 2 months, 3 months towards the Leaders Summit in November to ensure that they are at least implemented at the national level. But the second part is around the issues of inclusive and addressing the issues of inequality. Then again, inequality in this context, we don't look at it in a context of South Africa, but we look at it in the context of global economy, the global north, the global south, the continent. Where do we address these issues of inclusiveness, but also in terms of gender, in terms of intergenerational? So we're looking at those fundamental issues that we want to address. So those are the key fundamental issues that we want to address, and of course, followed by meaningful youth engagement and participation. And that is very important because youth summits have been classified as talk shows, and we need to move away from that so that youth are able and are in the decision-making tables.
But what will be the inflection point that will drive the communique from just being a communique that's handed over to the heads of states and the Sherpas to one that actually translates into policy in the member states?
Yeah, look, I mean, the structure that we are proposing as South Africa, which I must also say and know that there is some pushback from other member states, but we have support from other member states. These are the negotiations that have already begun, and they will continue going into the week to ensure that there is a structure that is being put forward for endorsement for head of states. And I must also say that DECO, as the Department of International Relations, through the Sherpa's office, supports our high-level recommendations and our ambition as the Y20 presidency to ensure that we secure the endorsement of the platform that will lead into continuity as well as the implementation. As I said, we've drafted over 200 policy recommendations, but they've not been implemented, nor even tracked or even monitored. And in our presidency, we want to ensure that happens. I think lastly on this point, as I was engaging with the South African delegation in particular, that when they are in the negotiations with other member states, they need to ensure that if they've got 6 recommendations, 3 of them, it's recommendations in which we can implement it as youth. So we don't have to rely and give everything to governments and call on the G20 leaders to implement 1, 2, 3, but we have to also have recommendation that speaks to say, as young people of the G20 member countries, this is what we're going to do in the next year, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, Raymond, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it, and all the best in the executing the Y20 Summit. Raymond Matlala is the chairperson of the Y20 track, forming part of the broader G20.